darkness beckons with a chilling call. Come closer, listen to the shadows draw. So subscribe and like, and don't be afraid to dive into the darkness where the shadows are laid. Tales from the shadows will spook your world. Join us on this journey, let your fears unfurl. Stay tuned, stay weird, and watch out for what lurks in the shadows.
Welcome, friends, to the dark and the deep, where whispers linger and shadows creep. Tales from the shadows, where legends arise with ghostly stories and myths that mesmerize. The minds at TFTS Labs have done it again. Today, we get a tale about John Paul, Echoes in the Dark. John Paul's story begins in a forgotten small town shrouded in perpetual mist, where he arrives with excitement and dread. He meets with a peculiar old lawyer, Mr. Crane, who knows more than he lets on about the legacy John Paul is set to inherit. Mr. Crane's eyes glint with something unreadable as he hands over an ancient key and a sealed letter left by his uncle, which John Paul is instructed not to open until he's in the mansion. The mansion looms on the edge of the town, concealed by towering oaks that cast eerie shadows. The structure is an oppressive Victorian monstrosity with turrets and cracked windows. The interior feels claustrophobic, dark, and hostile. Dust motes drift in the stagnant air, and the smell of decay clings to every surface as he explores the rooms. A strange tension builds, as though each step disturbs an unseen presence. He hears faint, nearly imperceptible whispers, and in certain rooms, it's as if the shadows shift when he isn't looking. Despite his reservations, John Paul decides to stay, lured by the mystery of the place, and perhaps by the allure of finally learning more about his enigmatic family history. Just before drifting off that night, he feels a strange sensation. A slight, icy breeze caresses his face as though someone is breathing near him. He jolts awake, but finds only darkness around him. Haunted by strange dreams of labyrinthine hallways and chanting voices, John Paul feels drained and uneasy the following day. Determined to explore, he stumbles upon a locked room at the end of a narrow, dark corridor, nearly hidden behind old, dusty curtains. The door is strangely cold, and when he touches it, an electric sensation jolts through his fingers. He spends hours searching the mansion for a key, finally finding one hidden in a hollow book inside the library, a leather-bound tome with no title. He unlocks the door, stepping into an eerie, dimly lit chamber dominated by a massive, wall-length mirror encased in an ornate, gilded frame. The mirror's surface is dark, almost black, and when he looks into it, his reflection seems off. It's not just a delay, it's as if his reflection is reacting to something else in the room, something John Paul can't see. As he approaches, he feels a deep, pulsing vibration, and a faint whisper reaches his ears, a language he doesn't understand but which fills him with intense dread. In the corner of the room, he finds an old journal wrapped in cracked leather. Written in his uncle's handwriting, it mentions rituals, the veil, and cryptic references to the dweller in the mirror. John Paul tries to leave, but hears his name faintly called from within the mirror. Frightened, he shuts the door and bolts it, but the sensation of being watched lingers as he walks away. Eager to understand his family's mysterious past, John Paul ventures into town, where he visits the local library and speaks with townsfolk. As he digs through historical records, he finds news clippings and documents about his uncle, Henry St. Clair, an eccentric scholar who had once been a respected academic before seemingly vanished from society. Rumors circulate about his obsession with the occult and his attempts to make contact with the other side. John Paul learns his uncle purchased the mansion after a personal tragedy, but no one knows precisely what happened. One particularly haunting story stands out. The townspeople claim that many who entered the house didn't come back out over the years. Several servants had quit suddenly, and one young maid was said to have gone mad, claiming she'd seen her death in the mansion's mirror. Another elderly resident recalls when his uncle was said to have had strange visitors, people who seemed not of this world, and who left weird markings on the ground near the mansion. That night, John Paul returns to the mansion, his mind filled with growing dread. As he falls asleep, the whispers grow louder. He dreams of a dark figure watching him from a window, but each time he tries to move, he feels paralyzed, trapped in place by an unseen force. John Paul's fixation with the mirror grows. Each day he's drawn to the locked room as if in a trance, compelled to stare into the dark glass. He sees things within its depths, shadows flit across, and at times the reflection of the room behind him appears distorted, as if he's glimpsing an alternate reality. One evening, he catches a reflection of himself with a twisted, ghastly smile, his eyes filled with something dark and evil. He stumbles back, his heart pounding, but the image is gone as quickly as it appeared. Over the following nights, his dreams grow increasingly disturbing. He sees himself tortured, engulfed in flames, or sinking into a bottomless pit, each dream accompanied by the sight of himself watching from the mirror, emotionless and unblinking. He tries to avoid the room, but finds himself unable to resist. The mirror's pull strengthens each night, and his reflection grows more twisted each time. Eventually, he realizes that the mirror isn't just showing him nightmares. It's feeding off his fear, amplifying his anxiety, and slowly wearing down his sanity. Desperate, he tries covering it with a cloth, but in the morning he finds the fabric burnt to a crisp, the mirror untouched. Soon, the entire house seems to come alive. John Paul begins hearing soft, taunting voices from inside the walls, following him from room to room. The voices start as faint whispers but grow louder each night, chanting phrases he can barely comprehend, phrases that sound like pleas, curses, and warnings all at once. In some rooms, the wallpaper seems to undulate as though breathing, and the floorboards creak in rhythmic pulses, almost as if they're following him. One night, the voices reach a crescendo, and John Paul hears a distinct, blood-curdling scream that reverberates through the entire mansion. He rushes to the source, only to find his reflection, contorted in agony, staring back at him from the mirror's depths. In panic, he scratches at the wallpaper and sees something chilling, blood-red markings beneath, forming strange symbols. Shaken, he retreats to his room, where he finds a message scrawled in the dust on his desk. "Find the basement." His heart races as he realizes the house is guiding him to something hidden and terrible.
Are you a fan of Tales from the Shadows? Want to support the show? Well, you're in luck. You can buy some Tales from the Shadows merch by clicking the link in the description. Whether you want accessories, a hoodie, or maybe even just a t-shirt, Tales from the Shadows has a little bit of it all. So don't wait, order your Tales from the Shadows merch now. Now let's get back into the tale.
With mounting dread, John Paul scours the mansion for the basement. After a day of searching, he lifts a dusty, tattered carpet in the study and finds a trapdoor. As he opens it, a rush of cold air greets him, and he sees steep, narrow steps leading into darkness. The basement is far more extensive than expected, a sprawling network of narrow passageways and hidden nooks. Dim, flickering lanterns cast long shadows, revealing the remnants of his uncle's experiments. He finds a journal that describes his uncle's descent into madness. His uncle believed he had found a way to bridge the human world with a shadow realm, using the mirror as a conduit. One night, John Paul awakens in what appears to be a distorted version of the mansion. He realizes he's not just dreaming. He's been pulled into a nightmare realm, a liminal space controlled by the entity within the mirror. After another night of relentless hauntings, John Paul retreats to his uncle's study. The whispering has become a constant, insidious presence. The voices no longer fade, even during daylight hours, and darkened reflections seem to follow him outside the mirror room. Through fragments of letters, notes, and cryptic Latin passages, John Paul discovers that his uncle had once been a brilliant scholar of ancient languages, exceptionally versed in dead languages referencing supernatural realms. The specifics of the pact are chilling. John Paul learns that the dweller operates by binding itself to reflective surfaces. It sustains itself by feeding off the fear and torment of those it traps. John Paul spends the following day preparing for the ritual, gathering items specified in the journal: salt, candles, an iron hammer, and a bowl of blessed water. At midnight, John Paul lights the candles and begins chanting an incantation from the journal. He feels an intense pressure as the words leave his lips, as though each syllable weighs down his soul. Just as he reaches the climax of the magic, the creature lunges at him from within the mirror. John Paul raises the hammer, smashing it against the glass with all his strength. In the aftermath, John Paul collapses, barely able to breathe, his hands shaking uncontrollably. The mansion is eerily silent, as though the house is in shock. But as he steps outside, he's met by several townsfolk who have gathered around the property. They stare at him with expressions of both pity and horror, some muttering prayers, others whispering stories of previous heirs who tried to break the curse. As he leaves town, John Paul can't escape the feeling that the entity's influence hasn't entirely disappeared. Every mirror he passes catches his reflection with a flicker of something dark and unearthly. John Paul is free, yet bound by memories of darkness, glimpses of shadows that shouldn't exist, and the haunting feeling that some curses can never be completely broken. That's going to do it for this tale. Be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss a story, and don't forget to comment on your favorite tale. You may see it here on Tales from the Shadows. Until next time, stay tuned, stay weird, and watch out for what lurks in the shadows.
This has been Tales from the Shadows, where the shadows speak the stories that will make you weak. Join us on this journey into the unknown. Tales from the shadows, where fear is shown. So subscribe and like, and don't be afraid to dive into the darkness where the shadows are laid.